Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Music is My Mantra, where we discuss all things music and wellness. This is the last episode of May, so I'll be talking all about my song Galaxies Collide and how that is intertwined with my own journey through mental health. This is not an episode where I pretend that I'm an expert on the topic of mental health, but really just wanted to share a little bit about what I've learned in my own experience when it comes to codependency and relationships. I also wanted to make a little note that if you haven't listened to my new EP, go check it out. I've got 3 songs on there. It is Save Yourself, which I talked about all in detail of my writing experience last week. Galaxies Collide, which is what we're getting into today. And then the last song on that 3-track EP is called CSR, which I did a live stream to release that music video in 2022. So you can actually find the entire live stream where I talk about the inspiration for the song and I take questions from the audience, I believe, and I show the music video. So you definitely don't want to miss that. It's a really fun music video. It's super quick and it definitely ties into everything that we were talking about last week with my song Save Yourself. The theme is all about mental health and substance abuse. I hope you enjoy it. That was one of the first music videos I did with my friend Ben. He is a super talented cinematographer. And today we're talking all about Galaxies Collide, which is also an amazing music video that I did with my friend Glenn Harris, another super talented artist. We shot this music video in Las Vegas, and the theme for the video was Leaving Las Vegas, which is a movie with Nick Cage. And the movie is about a man who goes to Vegas to basically drink himself to death, which, if you listened to my episode last week, that ties in perfectly to the theme. It's all about how my song Save Yourself was a plea to my dad to stop drinking and turn his life around. So Galaxies Collide is along the same topic. If you listen to through the end of the episode last week, I started to get into codependency and what that has to do with alcohol abuse. So let's pick it up from there. So I have to preface all of this with saying that in 2017 and 2018, when I was writing these songs, I really didn't know that I had a pattern of codependent relationships. Maybe it was really easy for other people to see, but I had a string of relationships where I felt like it just either wasn't going somewhere or, you know, there was one person who I thought that I was like obsessed with and we were in love. I just feel really grateful that I've made it this far and that I have been able to study Buddhism and come back to my roots in Christianity and find Jesus again, because the more that I seek these positive elements of life and understanding, and I work on reprogramming my thoughts and my beliefs, the better my life gets. And I'm sharing all of this because this is possible for you too. And I know when we're growing up, our first primary relationships, those are the relationships that are really going to shape us for the rest of our lives. And growing up with an alcoholic dad was really confusing. I saw things from one perspective, and then I had my mom who never drank in front of us, and she had a completely different perspective. And I saw different things when I was with each one of them. It was only later, late 20s, that I was able to see how my dad actually was manipulating my mom to get us to spend more time with him, because we would live with my mom full time and we would go stay with my dad in the summer. And my dad loved having us around because we never got to see him. So specifically for me, I remember thinking that life was great and grand when we got to see him, because he would give us money, we could go shopping, we had, just ridiculous barbecues, he would take us out to eat. And with my mom, she was very frugal and very realistic and down to earth. She was saving for the future, whereas my dad, I can't say that he was ever good with money, because he just always appeared like he had it. Judging by how things ended, I don't know what's real. Still, to this day, I don't know, he owned businesses at one point, and it could have all just been leveraged money. And he had some beef with my other family members, and I'm pretty sure that was all financially related. Things are really confusing when you're dealing with somebody who has a substance abuse issue. I think the trickiest thing about alcohol abuse is that it is such a common thing. It's so common for people to have feelings and go drinking. It's so common for people to drink more than is recommended, which is like 2 drinks a week. I remember in college when a therapist told me that, she asked how much I was drinking, and I think I had like 8 drinks a night or something. Like, that was my average when I was 21. Insane. Whenever we got to see my dad, I remember going above and beyond, like out of my way to serve him. If that sounds weird, he would always make a big deal out of us seeing him. He would pull out all the stops when we would arrive, and then he would get really into work, and we would just be hanging out by ourselves for the summer. Meanwhile, my mom would make plans and my dad would sabotage them, and the communication was just terrible. And I didn't really see all of it as a kid, because of course she was trying to protect me. My dad would always just make her to be the bad guy. In my 20s, I had a lot of not great relationships. I'd say that most of it came down to the fact that I just felt like I never got the love that I wanted, because my dad would show love in very specific ways. Like I said, taking us out to eat, giving us money, that sort of thing. But he never really was emotionally available to connect with us. He was not really there for the bigger milestones in life, generally speaking. There was this weird dynamic of me trying to be the good girl when I was around him, because I wanted attention. I wanted that deeper emotional relationship with my dad, but it just wasn't possible because he didn't know how to have that relationship with me. And so no matter what I did, it was still not good enough. And so going into relationships, I still had this perspective that I wasn't even really aware of. I wasn't really aware of how I wasn't loving myself, how I didn't fully respect myself. And culture tells us that we should just go out and do whatever we want. But actually, that made me feel more lonely, more isolated, more confused, because I was doing what I wanted and I wasn't getting what I wanted. And so Galaxies Collide came from this place. And when I first wrote this song, it was actually one of the very first songs that I ever wrote on piano. It was 2017, and I went on my very first tour, a West Coast tour. I played songs in San Diego, LA, Palm Springs, and San Francisco. So after San Francisco, I took a bus up to Northern California to see this person that I had met in New York. And in New York, this person was very fun. I met him through friends, and we were all partying a lot. I felt like we had some deeper relationship, but we really didn't. At the time, going to see him in California felt as though it was the validation that I needed, that this was actually something real and not just something really imagined in my head. I stayed a week with him. It was really fun and really weird at the same time, because I was sort of like living in a lie. And I didn't want to see how I was disrespecting myself and how I was being disrespected, because I was so focused on the fact that I was there with him and meeting his family and that sort of thing. When I got to Seattle, which was the next step on my tour, I had a baby grand piano and I was sitting over Lake Washington with a view, and I wrote this song. It was a very optimistic song about how we're finally getting together and everything is going good, and I'm finally, playing my music, and I'm finally putting myself out there and getting grounded. It's so funny because I think at the time those are the things that I wanted, but I wasn't actually grounded. I wasn't actually in a super healthy place. My work had been going really well. I was freelancing and working for a tech startup at the time, and I was making good money, and I was working remotely as I was touring. It did feel like I was putting down roots, but I was still in this very naive headspace that things were going to work out with this person who also had substance and alcohol problems. That was 2017, and that was the last that I saw this person. And I think after that, after some wise counsel from my family members, my aunts in particular, sometimes it's not good to talk to your direct family members, but I've been really fortunate that I have a big family and that we're all really close. I went back to New York. I started going to Buddhist meetings, to meditations, even back to church. And I really just started being okay with being by myself and journaling a lot and writing more songs and working on my goals. 2018, things with the tech startup had ended, but I got a job as a tour manager. So then I was really working in the music industry, and I was starting to actually even record my own music, record my own songs. I decided it was time to move to California, and I wanted to host a women's retreat in Hawaii because I have family there, and my grandpa had this great big house that we could have used, and I planned this amazing retreat. And then I moved to California and the retreat didn't happen. It was 2020, life happened. And so through all of these ups and downs and through COVID, I really got to look at myself and the lens which I saw all of my relationship through. And I started to understand this sense of desperation that I learned as a child because I only had limited time with my dad, and I wanted him to love me, and I wanted him to approve of me. And I did a lot of different journaling and courses and books about myself and my relationship. I guess it was 2021 came along, and at this point I met this new producer, and I was telling him about the story of where I wrote this song, Galaxies Collide. And actually, what I forgot to mention is you can actually go listen to my song Closer, the original version that I did during COVID times, 2020. And it's got a really nice beat to it. But when I looked at all of the songs that I had that really meant a lot to me at the time, when I was working with Alex, this new producer, I was telling him the story about my song Closer. And we sort of decided to rework it a little bit so that it became what it is today, Galaxies Collide. And I feel like it now has all of the movement that a codependent relationship experiences. There's this tension. The lyrics are way more intense. It feels like you're one person that you just can't live without them, basically. At the time, it even feels like, oh my gosh, this is my soulmate, my, all of the lies that we are sold as a young 20-something-year-old. And, oh, this is my twin flame. I wanted so badly to believe that this person who I didn't see clearly was my person. And if I had seen them clearly, then I would have probably recognized that they weren't respecting themselves, they weren't respecting me, because they had substance abuse issues. I just keep coming back to this because even last year I dated somebody who I thought was a stand-up human, and it only took me a month to realize that they also were an alcoholic. But At this point in my life, I was able to recognize that and step away and see everything for what it was. And I think this is a very important step in our healing journey, is that as we become wiser, we can actually see things as they are. And I can see how I want to be treated, and I can see how I've put up boundaries for myself around certain behaviors. And when you're in it, it's really hard to really understand that you're in it. You know, it's like if you only know the world as being one way from this one perspective, how can you possibly know what it's like through any other lens until you learn that there can be another way to see things? Back to my song, Galaxies Collide. I do think that meeting somebody can be this really amazing experience with fireworks and tension and chemistry and excitement. But I also now know that sometimes, probably more often than not, we confuse chemistry with chaos. What I mean by that is that our nervous system might be picking up on something that we don't fully comprehend. Our nervous system might be saying, no, this person is not good. And instead of seeing that as a warning flag, we see that as chemistry and we lean into it. And then it's like this person is giving us some sort of excitement or butterflies, when really, now that I know what a healthy relationship looks like as modeled by friends and family members that I have, not by my own personal experience, I think what really makes a good relationship is peace, and having this peace of surrendering in a place where you can be held and your nervous system can relax. And so on the last episode, I was talking about surrendering to God and your higher power. And again, you know, this is where Jesus is like the perfect example of being able to surrender into that peaceful place. If you don't have any other peaceful, healthy examples of a relationship, he took away suffering from this world so we can choose to not suffer if we want that. And that seems really simple now that I'm saying it out loud, but I've also been on the other side where I've been confused and my hormones are raging and I'm like super stoked on somebody. And then if they don't message me back, it is literally the end of the world. Now I just feel like I have enough peace within myself to recognize that if somebody doesn't message me, it's not the end of the world. And actually, there's probably a better option out there. And something not working out with somebody is protection. It's not death and, oh my God, I need to hold on tighter. So if you feel like Galaxies Collide speaks to you, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I believe that songs can have different meanings for everybody. But, you know, reflecting on that song today with the years of experience that I've had since I've written it 8 years ago, there's so much that we can learn from relationships. A lot of that time where I saw this person in California and I went back to New York City and I was becoming more comfortable going out to eat by myself and doing all of these things by myself and following my goals. These were huge stepping stones to my own personal growth. If you find yourself in a codependent situation, I just encourage you to spend more time with yourself, to get better at getting acquainted with yourself. If you're feeling guilty on focusing on yourself instead of your person or your relationship, this is like number one sign of codependency. So you need it even more. You need more time for yourself. If you can't find satisfaction in yourself first and everything is about your relationship, that is also a codependent relationship. And I think that, you know, everything in our culture comes down to this. It's actually, once I started listening to the radio and through this lens of like, what is a codependent relationship? What is unrequited love? Most songs that exist in the world are about these two things. It's about codependency and it's about unrequited love, and it's about that person did this to me instead of taking responsibility and actually becoming a whole person and finding another whole person to create something beautiful and to really build something amazing in the world and in the community. And there's a lot of songs about heartbreak, that's the unrequited love. There's really like a huge gap in our consciousness about what healthy love looks like. And it's not just self-love, like going to get your nails done or, buying a product. It's like, can you sit with yourself, by yourself? Can you observe your emotions? Can you process your own thoughts? Can you journal about your day and understand where your triggers are? If your sense of identity is wrapped up in somebody else, you can never fully be happy with yourself because you are dependent on that other person. If I were to rewrite Galaxies Collide today, I would probably put a positive spin on the ending. But I do think that song turned out really beautiful. Recording these songs with Alex was a generally good experience. It was really great to dive into the songs in a studio and really take the time to think through all of the parts. And that was a huge learning curve for me. So, everything in life is about the journey and about learning. If you're listening to this today, I just hope and pray that you find encouragement and inspiration to take yourself out on a date. It doesn't have to cost any money, but just go walk by yourself to the beach or in the park, wherever you live. If you are constantly thinking about that person that broke your heart or that got away or that won't call you back, just don't worry about it. Just focus on yourself because there's going to be somebody better out there for you. Not only that, but maybe you have some healing to do yourself before you meet them. I know I'm still looking for my person and I'm still learning things every single day. I hope that this insight was helpful for you today. As I said in the previous episode, if this brings up some deep feelings or emotions in you, please don't hesitate to talk to somebody about it. You can go to betterhealth.com and you can find a therapist or find somebody who is trained specifically in these topics. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to live in chaos. You don't have to be in a codependent relationship. You can be happy on your own, and you can welcome somebody who is peaceful and joyful into your life without chaos. So on that note, I hope this inspired some areas, food for thought. And until next week, check out the music videos for this EP. All 3 songs have epic music videos where we shot in Joshua Tree, Las Vegas, and Manhattan Beach. There's a lot of time and energy that went into them, so I hope you like them. And just know that each new day is a new day and a new opportunity to get to know yourself better, to work on your own health, wealth, and happiness. Until next time, have a great week. Bye.